So without further ado, Beefro, would you like to give a little introduction to yourself?
Okay. Hello. Hello, everybody who I can't see, but I hope I'm out there and I recognize. Oh, golly. So a little bit about myself. We're trying not to be long-winded. This is a Yestermorrow scene, so I'll start with just shy of my introduction to Yestermorrow, a little bit of college talk. Well, I never finished college. I never got a sheepskin, but I went twice, 2 years doing landscape architecture at Michigan State, which is an hour north of where I grew up, where University of Michigan, I was never far from smart enough to get in. So I went to Michigan State, where my brother John, who I think is watching, also went. Couple years there, ditched out, traveled around, hitchhiked across the country for a couple of years, and landed in Vermont and finished the Bachelor of Fine Arts program at Johnson State. So I went from landscape architecture with 44,000 undergrads to Johnson State, which is just shy of 1,000 undergrads. So a big difference. And I finished there in art, but I say I finished without a diploma. And my dad and my dad's dad both said, I don't care if you dig ditches for the rest of your life, just get that college diploma. Well, I didn't. And the combination of what I was interested in college kind of panned out in some way, because the art and the architecture stuff kind of turned into doing carpentry for a while right out of college, until when I was done at Johnson State, I came down to the Mad River Valley. Here we are, where we all are. I don't know where you guys are. But I came for a weekend party with some college friends at the Hilly Farm. Rebecca Hilly invited me for a weekend bash that I never left. I went to the weekend bash, never left, got introduced to Yestermorrow that summer. That was the summer of 1982. And I plugged in with Yestermorrow by way of doing an addition at the Hilly Farm. I designed and built, and I took a Yestermorrow class that the Hillies were so gracious to pay for my tuition, and I worked off by designing and building them an addition. So that's where the design build career for me got going, beyond the influence of my father. I'm so happy to say that I grew up in a house from age 1 minute to 18 years old, in a house my dad designed and built. So I had the bug in me from him, and my brother too. Well, one out of two brothers. And then, so, all right. So when I got to college, like, all right, art, architecture, what are you going to do? And I banged nails for a while doing carpentry, which led to the most amazing change in direction to apply the artistic part of having done sculpture at Johnson, a lot of outdoor kind of environmental sculpture. It led to making a coffee table, which I am going to get up. I'm going to show this coffee table right there in our living room. I made that as a birthday present for my girlfriend, who's now my wife of 30 some years. And that was just trying to make something cool out of a bunch of sticks. So I love the woods. I love roaming the woods, and I like I turned out foraging for a bunch of sticks. I wanted to make her a cool present, and that became the very first item of Treeforms, which blossomed out of that love of being in the woods and making things up and creating sculpture, but in a functional way, turns out, in a way that actually maybe not only functional, but you could sell and I could earn a living doing. So it did. I stumbled into that. And my sister, my dear sister Ann, runs art gallery down in North Carolina, invited me to show 2 pieces in a show, an outdoor themed, a nature themed art show at the art gallery she ran. So by doing those 2 pieces, it became official. It actually, then I went pro. I went from amateur to pro in a heartbeat. So I had a shop in Waitsfield called Treeforms for a good 12 years or so. And that led into a bunch of really great commissions, all one-of-a-kind sculptural tree-formed furniture, which then stumbled into being my fondness for being in the woods and loving trees. It ended up a very serendipitous result of a phone call into Yestermorrow in the fall of 99. No, the fall of 2000. Bill Allen, Make-A-Wish fundraiser, called Yestermorrow saying he wanted to do tree houses for kids in wheelchairs. So I went from basic carpentry to furniture to then tree houses after Bill called, and we actually built a wheelchair accessible, universally accessible treehouse on the grounds of Yestermorrow in the fall of 2000. So that phone call was rather fateful, and it changed the direction of my work from tree furniture to tree houses. So there you have it. That's what you get for not finishing colleges, but going 2 times. I did my 4 years, but the 2 years in between hitchhiking were probably the most educational and valuable. And then, yeah, so I just stumbled into both furniture and tree houses just in a rather kind of lucky kind of way. And I'm really thankful that that is my occupation. I get to wander around the woods and look for trees to build in, or look for trees to build with.
Wow, that sounds pretty wonderful to me.
I said I wouldn't be long-winded, and there I go. I can't help myself.
That was a great introduction. We've had a couple more people join us on Zoom and on Facebook, so I just want to reiterate that if you have any questions for Beaver during his presentation, you can enter them in on Zoom, the Q&A that you can access at the bottom of your screen, and on Facebook in the chat or comment boxes. I'll be keeping track of that, so feel free to ask questions there. And Beaver, I know you mentioned there was a particular person or two that you might want to have tune in verbally at some point. If you can remind me of the names.
Well, screen them heavily. They're architects. They want to
who was it again that you were interested in?
Well, John Anderson said he was really going to tease me. I don't know if you see that name. It might be under the computer of Jill Bobrow if they're looking.
I do have a Jill Bobrow.
All right, I'll try to be sharp because he's a brilliant artist and architect, and taught with several years at Yestermorrow in the mid '80s. So, John, your friend Jeff Sholkoff's out there. Beth said she was listening. Jeff, part of the team, the rendering extraordinaire for the treehouse renderings for our clients. Once I come up with a design of a footprint, of like a site plan and a plan view and some elevations, I sit down with Jeff and we have a couple beers, and he's astounding at doing perspective drawing. So he's part of the Treehouse Guy team. We'll get to other guys later.
Awesome.
I'm talking local Yestermorrow guys. God, this goes way back to mid '80s, to the very origins of the school.
Yeah, I mean, now we're at 40 years. It's exciting to at this moment in time.
That was my 20s.
All right, didn't mean to date you there, Beaver.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually get to say part of what I love to say about my job is I never have to grow up.
That's good.
In this job, it keeps me from having to grow up.
All right, so Beaver, would you like to get your slideshow started? And then I suppose if those particular people you might want to chat with want to pitch in, they can comment in the chat and I'll unmute them so that they can.
Okay, so being all new to this, I mean, I'm really not shy to talk in front of people, and I've always loved my connection with Yestermorrow throughout the years. I come and I go, and it's not on again, off again over a bunch of years, but without being able to see a crowd, and I'm going to show slides without to see any like bored faces or very excited faces. I don't really know how to transition. So I guess I just start rolling with the slides. And if anyone, if you want to interrupt me and when you give Rachel a holler and she can holler at me, feel free to. I don't mind interjections. That's fine. So Rachel, so I hit my first slide, or do I go to the gallery view first on my screen?
Do you see the share screen at the bottom, the green button?
Okay, that's where I get it. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Share screen.
And
now click my slideshow. Share. All right.
Now
Perfect. We see that.
the first one.
Huh. All right. I'm
I think
clicking.
if you hit play in the top right, then it should pull up the whole thing.
Top right is over here.
All right.
There you go. That one.
Okay. Play. Uh-oh. Turn the music. That's not. Actually, you know what? I was going to play around with an intro of a really great song, Leon Russell, Out in the Woods, but it didn't work. I thought.
Maybe next time.
Here we go. Play slideshow. All right.
Perfect.
Then you can do these.
All right.
Also,
now, you see that?
Yeah.
Do you see my slides?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Now I'm muted.
No,
I
you're
don't
not
hear
muted.
you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh.
I think you turned your volume off.
Okay.
Sorry for the technical difficulties,
When I
everyone.
muted the music, I don't know why their music came on. Sorry, folks. I'm technically challenged, but when I hit mute, I just have to turn the volume down.
Mhm.
I didn't hear you, and I don't know if you heard me.
I could hear you. I think it was in the slideshow, but you should be good. And if you hit the pause button there, then it will.
Shit, you're not supposed to. Don't look at that. Don't look at that.
Everybody close your eyes.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to start again.
All right.
This.
I'll
Don't
click.
do that.
Okay. So this first slide, this is an artist that I just stumbled upon online, and this is the dream bed. It doesn't look that comfortable, but it's elevated dream bed, which I hope everybody has one at home themselves. And another Ann Arbor, Michigan friend drew this, the old man in the trees. All right, so as I mentioned, the first Treeforms item, this is the coffee table I made for Dana for her birthday.
They can hear you.
And
You can hear them.
Rachel, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Can you hear me in Ann Arbor, Teresa? All right, this coffee table I really love. This is red cedar. Just a cool shape. And this is our outdoor bedroom. The bed on the left is made out of beech and apple, and the bench on the right is also beech. And there's that coffee table again. A nice fall folded shot. So this was a shot that Dana did for me for a brochure and for a real snazzy craft show, American Craft Council in Philadelphia I did a bunch of years ago. And this is up at Trav's, where my first shop space before I moved into Waitsfield. Trav, I hope you're listening. Beth and Jeff's couch, they commissioned me to do this. This is the first piece I made with upholstery involved instead of just a bunch of uncomfortable sticks to sit on. It is apple. All that framework is apple.
Hey, Beefer, we already have a question.
Okay.
You can hold on to it until you get down into the treehouse section, but someone's wondering what kind of trees you look to build in. And that same person, Steve, thank you for your questions, was wondering how you do the joinery. Do you use nails or mortise and tenon? How do you put it all together?
In the tree furniture, it's a lot of scribing where I can't point to the image. I scoop out from like say the vertical member in that front right leg. I'll scoop out a half round and nestle that horizontal guy in, countersink, and screw with really heavy duty wood screws, and then peg, put wood plugs on the countersunk holes for the screws. So heavy duty wood screws and wood plugs, sometimes wood dowels. It's all just kind of like, I would call it half lap joinery, but in a much more organic way because they're round shapes instead of square. So yeah, I can't point to the screen, but unless my mouse, if you see my mouse.
Yeah, we see your mouse.
I'm talking about scooping out here. A lot of scooping, standing. See if we go to another. This rocking chair, it's crazy. The rockers are, that's apple. Nope, excuse me, that's cherry. and all the framework is Apple, that leg and the armrest. So when we look at trees and we talk about trees, a branch, just like that's an arm. I saw that on the ground. I said, that is an armrest if ever there was one. And that was sitting in my shop for years until probably became part of this piece. But just finding shapes, I mean, not the technical talk about joinery, but just finding how one form will fit into another and nestle, just become one. Out of an arcing, I like curvature. I don't like things really straight. So here's a really, really nice arched piece of beech and a beech slab that was a really big curved tree that I milled into these slabs. A lot of forks. I like using forks. You see the backrest and the front leg is an upside down fork and a right side up. This bed is beech. This is spalted maple down here at the bottom. The rails, all the framework is beech, and just finding ways for pieces to nestle in amongst each other in a real comfortable and natural way. Now, I guess that was a quick Treeforms romp in the woods. So this is what you get out of the woods and you bring home and make something of it. And then we're making tree houses. There's a custom front door. Catherine, I hope you're watching. And there's my partner, Chris, as you guys in the Valley know as Chris Hake. And in the treehouse world, everyone knows him as Cavey, because he came to us as a young caveman, crawled out of the caves of New Jersey, came up to Vermont. I met him. He came into my shop in the Treeforms days, and we met. He was curious what I was doing with all those sticks. So, Cavey, I hope you're watching. Our relationship goes way, way back to, Treeforms days. And so that was in the first Treehouse 2000. We met in the very end of the 90s. And he came up here to kind of be a snowboarder, ski bum. And he learned a bunch of furniture stuff in my shop. And then as soon as the treehouse stuff took off, we became fast friends and partners. No, we became fast friends first and partners later, as we started with Forever Young Treehouses. And here's a bunch of knuckleheads. There's this isn't from Forever Young. This is later on in the era, but my partnership with Cavey, what all started with, as I mentioned, the Yestermorrow Treehouse, the Bill Allen Make-A-Wish. We were doing the wheelchair accessible thing under the name of Forever Young Treehouses for, let's see, from 2000 till 2010, I don't know, 10 or 12 years or more. Eirik Stauffer, who is a Yestermorrow instructor and board member, I think, at one time, and teaches the Yestermorrow Treehouse class, was involved early on from way back when with Cavey and I. And we actually gave Cavey his nickname, Eirik and I and a bunch of guys on the crew in the early days, because if he would cut something that wouldn't fit, he would just beat it until it fit. So we said, God, you're such a caveman, or don't go all Cavey on that. So he came on with the name Cavey after that. So
we have a couple questions. Two different folks, similar question, I think, touching on both the Treeform and Treehouse, but questions first about how you get the bark off of the trees, if you have a recommendation for how to do that. And another person wondering how you process and finish raw sticks and branches.
So that's peeled with a draw knife. A draw knife is a two-handled wooden handle with a steel blade, and you peel it. I don't know if you've ever peeled a potato. It's a lot like that, but on a larger scale. So a draw knife, sand, and then sanding too, and then an oil finish. I use oil finishes. I'm not a urethane fan at all. Linseed oil mixes. There's a bunch of groovy products out there that you can get that are healthy to work with, and linseed oil concoctions that absorbent. So oils penetrate instead of standing up hard on the surface like urethanes do. boiled linseed. Yeah, the peanut gallery just shouted. Boiled linseed works up. There's a couple. I'm not going to say name brands because I don't know who's listening, but there's a lot of good products out there in the linseed oil world. So this is all draw knifed and sanded and then oiled.
Do you strip the bark when it's green wood or after it's dried?
Well, it's a couple different sources of woods. When I go out to gather for furniture wood, I look for stuff that's already been down, like windfalls and things have been taken down in storms that are already down and dead. And the key thing is to find them when they're dead, kind of drying, but not so far gone that they get punky. So sometimes the result is you find things at the right time. You see spalting, which, see this piece of maple at the bottom of this bed, there's spalting going on. So you find trees in the woods that are laying down long enough to get spalting, which is just a fungus that gets in the tree. But if it's been there too long, it'll rot, it'll go punky. So here's a fine example of where there's some decay and the spalting. Those are trees that are already down and dead, and the bark often flakes off pretty easy if they're really dead. If you were to cut a brand new living tree, best to cut it in the spring or summer when the sap is really flowing and the bark will come off really easy. If you cut a tree in the winter and you start peeling it late winter, it's very difficult to get the bark off. So it's like right around this time of the year, if you were to cut a living tree, if you found one that you really wanted, like this was in aisle 6 down in the woods. This is a serviceberry tree that, and this angle isn't showing, but it's intertwined. It's like two really sensual legs that are kind of intertwined. And this I peeled in the spring. It came off really easy. I did cut this. It was a living guy, but it was so dang beautiful. I knew I needed it to hold up my addition that I built during a Yestermorrow class a bunch of years ago.
Do you ever leave the bark on?
No, it really is best to peel it because inside, so anything that's going to be outdoors, you definitely peel because you don't want the moisture to get in. You don't want the bugs to get in. When you bring it inside and dry it, you could get away with leaving the bark on. But then you would aim to cut the tree in the winter, like I said, when they're dormant and there's less sap flowing. If you cut it in the spring when the sap is flowing, there's a lot of drying after that, and all that moisture, when it dries up, the bark's most likely going to fall off. But if you want to keep the bark on, like on this, the sticks on this coffee table there, that bark has been on for 30 some years. Yeah. So but most often, yes, peel it. And I don't know, it's just kind of taking it one step from nature to being refined, to becoming indoors and becoming furniture. It's just kind of the next step.
Great.
Oh, this one was cut in the spring, and it was, it peeled easy. But one thing about cutting a living tree and being a tree hugger, there's a lot of tree huggers out there, but I'm a tree hugger. I hug them and then I cut them down. I have no qualms about cutting a tree down. I'm just not a clear cutter, but I hug them. I hug them first and I tell them, thanks. You're going to go find a new life in someone's house that's going to be appreciated daily. So that's my tree hugging theory.
I like it. Thanks, Beaver. Now on to the tree houses.
So now, as I mentioned, we talked about KV and the origins of us coming together to, we worked for a bunch of years as Forever Young Treehouses, then as a nonprofit. And we found after many years, the clients we were working for at that time were primarily camps for kids with disabilities that were nonprofits themselves. And we realized we didn't really need to be a nonprofit. We kind of had an organizational shift in the wind, and Katie and I just partnered up for an LLC called the Treehouse Guys. And the Treehouse Guys, that was, gosh, it's been, memories jog. It's been at least 10 years of half of the time of doing Forever Young and half the time of doing Treehouse Guys. We have, in addition to the two of us being partners, we have quite a cast of characters from all over the place. Right here in Vermont, right over the mountain in Lincoln, we have Jody, Bobby, Tom, Dale on a couple projects, Jody on a bunch, and then the newest recruit from Southern Vermont, Mikey. We got Travis all the way out there in Alaska. And then there's all kinds of guys that have been in and out of the fold. The knuckleheads pictured here, Jason at the bottom, Jaco, KV, and myself, we all came together for this funny moment of a TV stretch for 3 seasons of doing a show about tree houses. Jason at the bottom, we met, he came from the zipline world and canopy tour world. He's an amazing rope guy and a bridge builder with cables, suspension bridges, and he's been awesome, and he's got a seriously wry sense of humor. Jaco above him is a rope rigger extraordinaire who knows all about knotting. He knows a lot about nothing. No, he knows a lot about knotting. He's a rope rigger. He's from the Seattle area, actually, Port Townsend, Washington. So anyone that has been involved with the Treehouse Guys over the years not only comes with serious skills, but outrageous character. And you can't be on the crew unless you're some sort of a knucklehead with a good sense of humor and a positive attitude, not to mention a good skill set. There's a couple happy clients. Make-A-Wish kid there, that was in Indiana, a simple little backyard tree house for Everett in Indiana. So God, our clientele varies. Here's a 7-year-old kid that had just been dealing with going through chemotherapy, and he came out of it all healthy and good, and Make-A-Wish Foundation got us to go out there and do this tree house for him. One thing you got to know about Treehouse Guys, we're really not found at levels. Myself being the biggest proponent of being the anti-level guy. This was a client up on Lake Champlain up in St. Albans who found out that the hard way. We don't believe in level, but they're here. I'm going to show some drawings, stuff that leads into doing a treehouse. The deck has to be level, we'll give you that. But after that, the walls and the roof sure as heck don't need to be level. Here's a treehouse that plans for a treehouse that actually never got built, but it went through this rough stage of the design. So if you see my mouse, we're looking in plan view, and then right above it, we have an elevation of these posts. So we have oftentimes, in addition to living trees, which here are lettered, we see E, D, F, G, H, I. The trees are lettered, and then we need more additional support. There's posts, so P4, P3, there's a few posts. So this one went from my drawings to an engineer who, Dick and Ben, I hope you're tuned in. How are you? Dick's in Wyoming, Ben's in Rhode Island or Delaware or somewhere here in the Northeast. And I'll take my crazy ideas and draft them and then pass them their way to get engineered, and then they become legit. So here's just a very simple layout. I just want to throw a couple, just some plan views here. As I mentioned, the letters, this is down in Virginia, tree A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then there were a couple posts. There's the post over here. This is a really big wraparound deck. Is my mouse visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this is outside in a deck and covered. It's open aired, but covered over top of you to get to hang out in the rain. And then an open with no roof. And then here's the enclosed treehouse. So just quick little plan view. and then a framing plan. We've got a vocabulary of our own, staggerly. When you stagger a joist or stagger something, that's called staggerly. Thanks, Taj Mahal.
Beaver, I have a question about whether you use, let me see, they say, is posts and trees the way to go to take the stress off the trees, but still be able to hug them? Do you use posts as well as the trees?
Posts only when necessary. So as the hopeful site will be one that includes, I'll go back again to where they're lettered. All the lettered circles, those are trees, and they're a corresponding diameter, 20-inch diameter, 12, 14, 13. So a minimum, we look for like a minimum of about a 12-inch diameter hardwood, ideally a hardwood tree, maple, beech, locust, hickory, oaks, better than pines and spruces and all that. But if you're out in the Pacific Northwest, the conifers are all right. But around here, the Midwest, hardwood trees, deciduous, if you know that word. So yes, we've got sometimes we have to add post. Here's a post here, and there's another one in the corner. So when need be, we will bring in auxiliary posts to help spread out the footprint. So when I go to do a site visit and find the appropriate trees with the appropriate spacing, the first step is to find out where can the beams go, and where. So there's another vocabulary word that's new: Jim beam 1, Jim beam 2. So this beam is going this tree, this, with the joist running over top of it. We got a Jim beam there that's underneath this. So the design is steered largely by nature. What we find with the spread of the trees, we then start with to create the footprint. And they often turn out like this without many square corners. Here, dang it, there's a square corner relationship there, but not many places else. So basically the trees will determine what the footprint shape is. And once I've got that footprint in plan view, then I can come up with elevation. So here's a case where on the left is a big oak tree in Collins' backyard in Barrington, Rhode Island. And we've got in a single tree what we call a spreader beam, which is like on a ship's mast. You've got a beam that's level and then 2 diagonal braces that go back down lower to the tree to create a spreader, like to create the diagonal braces support the ends of that beam when we're seeing the end view, not the side view. Then out front, we're looking at 2 posts that are on footings. And when we have to use posts, in this case, in that kid's backyard, there was only 1 tree that was decent. So we added 2 posts out front. And when we do that, we use locust tree posts. And we learned this hard way. We're doing a lot of different other hardwoods for years. But locust, black locust, will not rot. It's just so strong and really, really rot resistant. So when we have to use a post, like you see out front here, and that little dotted line, that's a footing below us, sonotube footing. So here's a good combination of living tree and then 2 posts out front. So yeah, to answer that question, we'll use a combination. And here's after the drawing, here's the end result of Collins' treehouse. So these posts have the diagonal brace branches. So it would be really, really ugly and boring to use a 6x6 pressure treated post. So we use trees as posts quite often. And tree diagonal braces. So to keep it natural. So in this case, since there was only 1 living tree and we added a couple posts, by using trees and then the diagonal braces like this staggered at different heights, it gives a branch-like appearance and it's more natural.
Awesome.
There's Colin helping out. He lived near the coast and his grandmother had a boat. She gave me the steering wheel from her yacht that is the front door, the window in the front door.
We have a couple questions for you. We got one question wondering from your good friend Teresa if there are women involved in the building. these wonderful tree houses, and also have some questions about whether you sink the posts or use footings for them, or and if you do use footings, do you do them below the frost line?
Yeah, definitely 4 feet around here, 5 feet even sometimes. Frost line, we dig and get a footer and a sonotube with a footer, and put the post. You don't want to, you sink the post and you're just asking for rot. You could sink a pressure treated post, but as I just described, it's ugly as sin. We don't use them. So a sonotube that's above grade with a varying kind of post brackets at the base, a base bracket. Sometimes they're a welded knife plate. Sometimes they're just out of the store 4x4 or 6x6 post bracket that we adapt to a tree. We cut a square little piece at the bottom to fit in the post hanger thing, post base bracket that's store-bought, but sometimes a knife plate that'll go up 2 feet into the tree with a chainsaw kerf, and then 2 through bolts that you blind. You have to be very careful in laying out, and you put through bolts in. So you can do a hardware store version or an engineered hardcore version with spline plates, knife plates, some people call them. But yeah, if you do a footing, you definitely put a sonotube in, not put it under grade. And to answer Teresa's question, by all means, there have been women on our crew that have come and gone, including your lovely daughter up in St. Albans. We've had, Marley plugged in with us up there. We've had women on our crew. As I mentioned, we're by no means an all guys thing. We go by Treehouse Guys, but that's generic. You can be a guy, a gal. We've had a bunch of gals, but as I mentioned, the key ingredient is, do you have character and a positive attitude along with your skills? We don't care if you're male or female. So yeah, there's women's out there.
Do you, if you build a tree house in, say, California, would you also use a sonotube or go, like, what would you do for those?
Oh God, Rachel, why would you ask about California of all places? Out there, this is crazy. And I will show slides coming up of a project we did in a city park, California, where you're in a seismic zone. Not only is it sonotube footings, but we had under the ground, we had a grade beam that connected. I'll point it out when we get to the slide, but to do something in earthquake zones, the footings become insane. So we had a 44 some footings that had a grade beam that connected each one. So it was like a big web. And out there, you know, you've only got palm trees and, well, at least in Southern California, this project we did was in LA, palm trees and eucalyptus trees, which really aren't suitable to build in. So we imported a truckload of oak trees from Oregon that were all on footings. And before we even bought a box of nails or a stick of lumber, we were up to our eyeballs about $2,000 in engineering fees. $20,000 of engineering fees before we even touched a piece of wood.
Wow.
And that would be like, so here, this site plan is at a Warriors Path here in Kingsport, Tennessee. This was in living trees and some posts on footings. That when you get into a city park project, the city live loading, it just becomes, the engineering becomes insane. So to answer your question about in California or different places with, in Florida, most recently, we dug footings and was like, we were done in 2 minutes because frost line in Florida is, thank goodness, it's like 10 inches, 5 inches below the snow. There's no frost line. But up here in the Northeast, yeah, you're digging 4.5 feet deep to get below frost line. So each region will have their different criteria that we'll meet. And but in California, Southern California, the whole seismic thing was rather insane.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But yeah, and so there's the plan view of Daryl's dream. This was over a universally accessible playground that was at a state park in Tennessee. So the treehouse was an open-air structure that had a cool roof line with a clear story up here, and bunch of rustic detailing that overlooked the playground. Daryl's dream. Now here's the one in LA. So this is what I was talking about. This is the Annenberg Foundation funded this. This is the biggest project we've done to date. And you start up here, coming out at a universally accessible ramp to landing, another ramp to this deck, where this was in Torrance, California, part of LA that had a pretty big Asian population. So I designed this roof to look like a Japanese kind of Japanesey feel, like a kind of an open air tea house. I don't know what you call it, but the local folks in the neighborhood would do Tai Chi on the deck. We knew that in the park existing, they were doing Tai Chi at this different platform. So we created this space for people to do their exercise. It has this sticky, woodsy, trellisy, real Treeforms trellis going on, and they do their Tai Chi in the morning. And that was not quite a treehouse, but then this treehouse, and this is all on those oak trees from Oregon that were trucked down and put on the seismic graded foundation system. So you'd wheel out through here and over to here through the Japanese scene, and then over this deck. And then this treehouse had a inverted gable. So instead of a regular peak gable, it was upside down to collect that rare raindrop in LA, and that tree coming through the middle. So we had a hole in the tree leaf, so the whole roof looked like a leaf, and the water could drip down there in the middle. And that's the tree leaf. If anyone can identify what species that tree leaf is, I will mow your lawn for you the first mowing of this spring. Calls, take your calls. Rachel, answer your calls. If you're the first caller to call in and identify that leaf, you win that prize.
I'm waiting. There's no guesses yet. Aspen.
Okay.
Steve asks about Aspen.
Aspen is in the poplar family. It's weak. It's not ideal.
Teresa mentioned beech.
Beeches are great. Beech is great.
Which one is it? Is any of those?
Which
People need to keep guessing.
are you?
Anna.
The leaf is Aspen. I'm sorry, I thought is Aspen good to build in? Nah. Beech. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with beech. So I'll come mow your lawn, Teresa.
That's Teresa. There you go.
That and it's pretty wild. That whole roof was, engineered. It's like that. We didn't just wing it. There a lot of engineering went into that. And here it's a really nice example of using the tree post. Here's a fork branch, and we do a lot of chainsaw work, a lot of notching with our posts. That's one skill set you got to have if you're going to be it's very handy if you're going to be a treehouse builder. Here's the Tai Chi zone, and on a nice sunny day with the trellis, the light reflecting down, the shadow going down on the floor of that deck, and that's that trellis there from the view, and then the Japanese scene there. One Hindu man came and was praying for hours out in the treehouse. When he got up, he had this grin on his face. He goes, "I've never been in a more pleasant place in my life to pray." That was in that zone. That was pretty cool.
Beaver, what type of fastening hardware do you use?
We use bombers. That's another part of our vocabulary list. Bombers are screws. They're timber lock. We started out in the old days with timber locks. If anyone out there knows what that is, they're timber framing screws. They're like lag screws, lag bolts, but they're screws that go in without having to countersink. A large part of our hardware in our tool trailer, we got buckets of, we call them bombers because they're the bomb. They just attach, they're so strong, and they replace lag bolts. Here, we can see at the corner here, though, these are through bolts and lag bolts because this is in a public park where the engineering, there's a couple lag bolts right there at my mouse. But the timber lock screws, now there's a Simpson strong tie product of a heavier dutier new era bomber that are 5/16 inch shaft. They're really stout screws.
Great.
Yeah, they're awesome. Bombers. What other fasteners? A lot of decking screws, just star drive decking screws. Emphasis on star drive. Sanford, if you're watching, these old school Phillips head guys, they're outdated. We go with star drives, decking screws, a lot of things, in this era of cordless tools. We screw things together way more than nail. We rarely use nails anymore. It's kind of weird. Screws and bolts. We often use ledgers instead of joist hangers because I don't like the look of joist hangers. Here's the man praying that I mentioned, the Hindi man praying.
You should say something about the Treehouse connection.
Oh, but yes, Dana might know. Another fine note from the gallery. What am I thinking when we talk about hardware in a treehouse, when we don't mention the Garnier limb, the GL? The GL is the tree bolt fastener. Thank you, Dana. It's a huge part of our hardware. This is the foundation. So let's see if I can come up with a picture. Oh, dang it. Now those are all posts. So we're gonna go. The Garnier limb is an 1.25 inch diameter hardened steel shaft that goes into the tree 6 inches deep, has a 3-inch diameter collar, known as a boss. And then the shaft goes out anywhere from 12 to 18 inches away from the tree. And the whole premise of the treehouse construction is that these bolts go into the trees and hold up the beams, the gym beams that support the floor joist system, the floor framing. So I can't believe I was just going on and on about bombers. I didn't mention the GL. But Michael Garnier out in Oregon, kind of with his buddy Charlie Greenwood, who's the really brilliant engineer out in Southern Oregon, came up with this bolt, the GL, the Garnier limb. So these are absolutely instrumental. You can't do a treehouse without them. Some people will call them a tab, TAB, tree attachment bolt, but we go by the original GL, Garnier limb, and they're just heavy duty bolts. So you can look online, if I may endorse a product online. Am I allowed to do that, Rachel?
Sure, why not?
It's not the brand of tonight's beer I won't promote, but I will say the GL you can find on treehouses.com. And Michael is we call him the tree paw, the godfather of it all. He started building tree houses in Oregon to do a bed and breakfast, Out and About Tree Resort. And the Out and About Tree Resort, no, I can't. At Out and About Tree Resort, he devised this bolt system. So that's to answer the hardware question. You couldn't answer it without that. So now I got to keep moving because Peanut Galleries tell me the clock is ticking. The rendering you saw. This is Jeffa. So I'll do the plan view and elevations, and my buddy Jeffa is an amazing perspective drawer. So I do the coloring. It's like a kid to do a coloring book. Jeff will do a pen and ink perspective, and then I'll color it in and give it to the client. In this case, a city park in Cincinnati, they could use that for fundraising purposes. And people, they say wheelchair accessible treehouse. How does that work? Well, here's how it works. And here's what it looks like after rendering. And then that roof, it's a crazy roof line, all tree rafters. And here we had the treehouse, the Forever Young treehouse crew, and a bunch of local Cincinnati carpenters came and went and helped out as well. So all the guys you see here are from Cincinnati area. And we'll plug in with local builders a lot when we get around all over the country. So that roof from the rendering and that amazing hillside with the wheelchair ramp, that was a really fun project. Another one, this is in Burlington, Vermont. If anyone around here is familiar, Oak Ledge Park.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Forever Young. Oh no, that's not true. That's not true. Oak Ledge Park is an open-air one that has a similar roof around a single tree. This one's in Asana, Massachusetts, at a school for kids with disabilities. Very similar shape to what we did at Oak Ledge Park, but this one's closed in. And then Crotched Mountain early on, this was our third big commission. Crotched Mountain in New Hampshire, a rehabilitation center, had a really great windy wheelchair ramp and no post. That's all in living trees, a bunch of oak trees. And then aerial view of a wheelchair ramp. That's Miss Wisconsin snipping the ribbon for a happy camper at a camp in Wisconsin we built at a small town in the middle of Wisconsin. That was a ribbon cutting day to go up that wheelchair ramp. So she busted through the gates and went up to the treehouse for the first. This is at Crotched Mountain in New Hampshire. That's a wild elevated ramp going out to a treehouse in Austin, Texas, right down the road from Willie Nelson. On the shores of Lake Ontario outside of Buffalo. Zeno Mountain Farm, right over the hill, right here in Lincoln. This is an amazing camp, just an amazing camp with amazing people that I've got to know over the years as a result of building this treehouse. Like so many of our clients, I'm so happy to say that we go into our work as a client-worker relationship and we come out as friends everywhere we go. We build these great friendships from our work. Scranton, Pennsylvania, that's Iric designed that. That's Iric from Yestermorrow. If you guys know, that's an amazing hillside in Scranton, PA, in a city park. Look at that perch. It's you don't see the ground below because it's like 30 or 40 feet below and a gorge, a river gorge going through. There's the ground below.
Could you go back to that photo again? I have some questions about how you factor in trees growing, and it looks like you left a lot of space for those limbs.
Yeah, in that case, the trees come through the roof and it's left. It's an open-aired structure. It's going to get rained on. Other times, if you see my mouse, we'll go around that ring and we'll create a rubber membrane, like a gasket, if I can say out loud, a tree condom, but we put a rubber on the roof so that it doesn't rain inside and it protects the inside from getting wet. And it's being a rubber membrane, it's flexible. So the tree is going to move side to side. Maybe in another picture, I'll have one. Basically, it's like you see it on a toilet stack. It's just a flashing, a way to flash. That tree doesn't come through that's at Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania. I'm gonna get, okay, here, this tree, no rubber membrane flashing here because it's an open aired one. That's for in Massachusetts, in Worcester, a cancer, kind of a halfway house for kids with cancer. It was a really sweet project. That's an oak tree, so that's a single standing tree supported alone by the oak tree. The Sonoran Desert Museum, Ben Cheney, another Yestermorrow guy who was an outstanding in his field, actually in the desert. He led that crew of building this treehouse in the Sonoran Desert where there are no trees living. So many, not so many at the museum anyway. We imported them from the Mexican border, these mesquite trees. And that was a cool roof. That was a really fun project with the open air and the canopy roof with canvases for shade. And there's the mesquite trees. So where there aren't living trees, we can fake it well. That's out in Washington State, a crazy bridge to a treehouse and a kind of a one tree octagon. I want to show you the rubber roof. Here's a local example of what you can do when you don't have living trees at the right place, but tree posts, a wacky Dr. Seuss roof here on the cedar shingles and live edge siding. Crazy roof. That was for our dear departed friend, Michael. We did that just before he passed away for his kids. Live edge is one of our favorite siding materials. That's a kid down in Springfield, Massachusetts. No, Springfield, Vermont, sorry. a notch in a tree. Chainsaw work. Oh, shoot. The backside of this tree had the rubber membrane. That's got kind of a Midwestern prairie look. That's outside of Chicago at a city park. A Make-A-Wish kid up in Essex Junction, Vermont. Sweet little gal. This is one of my favorite ones. This is up in St. Albans, where Teresa, your daughter, helped us work. This is incredible Norway spruce that had this amazing arcing branch, really cool branches. Windows that are tree formed windows. That's Lexan. That's a very high-tech version of plexiglass in the corner. So the whole window, the whole corner is full of light and crazy shape. There it is from the front. So I basically just kind of nipped out in the tree. I let in a little channel for the plexiglass to slip into, all slick. And there's from the inside looking out. So you're at the corner, you're really being outside. Whole thing about a treehouse is that you want to feel like you're outdoors. You're in the woods. You want to feel as close to nature as you can, and tons of windows, tons of light, and just get as close to the woods as you can. This is a wild roof line in Georgia at a vineyard. This tree house overlooks a vineyard, and it's kind of an Airbnb scene, which is a new trend in the treehouse world. So this wall leans out, and it's out of level from about 7 feet here in this corner to about 10 feet in this corner. So it creates this really warped roof effect. And a local roofer came and looked to bid it, and he looked at me, and he looked at the treehouse, and he looked at me again. He goes, "Y'all crazy. Y'all crazy." This is Michael. I mentioned the Garnier limb. Michael that's Jake standing in front of the Swanee River Music Park on the Swanee River in Florida. Crazy live oak tree, a lovely live oak. This is at Lake Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire. Little tree-formed ladder going up to a platform, and then a suspension bridge to a treehouse, and then another bridge to a crow's nest. Another view of that. There's these two Siamese twins that were disconnected at Murray, Kavy and Travis. That's in Virginia, a project we did during the crazy days of the TV show in Virginia, overlooking a pond. Shelter Island with an outrageous tree ladder to get up to the tree house. That's one single oak tree, an amazing oak tree overlooking Long Island Sound. Bunch of limbs. Here's a rubber gasket coming out of the limbs on the walls, and they're in the roof too. There was 8 limbs coming out of the walls and 3 coming out of the roof. It was a crazy tree. Really fun project on Long Island. Out in the redwood trees of Northern California, up in Fort Bragg. Unbelievable. Redwood trees are so great. One of my favorite clients of all time. They're all favorites, but Gay was quite a character, provided baked goods for us every day. I like doing panels of light in the roof. So this center tree with this collar that goes around it. It's a compression ring that goes around the tree that all the rafters with live edge can come join into and come out from. There's a rubber membrane. There's a tree condom right above that. There you go. I was looking for those. So that's an octagonal in a regular octagon with clear panels of light coming through the roof. It was a fun project. And here we go. That's where we throw the level out the door. That's what you get. Gay scolding me for goofing off and not working. I don't know. Gay was so great. So I hope you're watching. Gay and Mark, hi, how are you? I sent them a note. Hopefully they're on Zooming out there. So early in the day there. But Gay was really into fairies and hobbits and Dr. Seuss. We had a lot in common. But she asked me if I could do a hobbit tour and a fairy door within the Hobbit door. So I'm peeking out the fairy door. She truly believes in fairies, this class. She is a grown woman who truly believes in fairies. There's a door of at Michael's treehouse. That's a snowshoe window. A band of light. That's at Zeno Mountain Farm. I love making custom front doors. The entrance is key to entrance you to come in. There's the outside of that. So using Lexan again and the live edge to create a band of light, and that's from the inside looking out. Love making doors. And here's a sliding door that when closed, you see this, and then it'll slide to the right, and you'll see this. The door windows match up with the treehouse windows. Ta-da! Some funky Lexan windows at Discovery Museum in Acton, Mass. What's that? A piece of live edge? Oh, it's a window for kids to peek out. That's the inside of a treehouse out in Idaho. Pretty cool scene there. In Virginia, here's another one with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like tons of limbs coming through the walls. Crazy amount of limbs. And there they are coming out the roof. There's the rubber membrane tree gasket to keep the rain out the walls, all over the place. The more trees, the merrier.
Do the gaskets do a good job of keeping the water out, or do they leak at all?
I'm going to give them 98% leak proof. So that 2%, if that bothers you, then you don't want to be in a treehouse. If you're not a treehouse lover, you won't get it. But to honestly answer your question, Rachel, they work quite well, but not 100% guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bicycle front window, walls leaning out. The walls leaning out of level and top plates being out of level are a pretty key ingredient in our work. A magnificent oak tree along the shores of Lake Ontario. That was a beautiful oak tree. At a camp where our crew, it was me and Kavy and Eirik and a Amish father and 3 sons. And the Amish guys were so cool. They were so great and so fun to work with. There's an indoor treehouse I did a bunch of years ago up at Caspian Lake up in northern Vermont. That's an inside that platform. So it's up in the cathedral ceiling that a local artist painted sky blue. And we brought in a whole bunch of maple trees from around here and a crazy stairway / shelf unit stairway going up to an indoor little ramshackle treehouse. That was fun. There's the one in Shelter Island that had a gazillion limbs, and I made a jungle gym ladder to get up to the sleeping loft, which is above. You go up here, around through the tree, and then up this ladder. So it's fun. It's a whole thing. I mean, when you talk about with Yestermorrow and the whole design build thing, the freedom of building and designing on the fly that we do in the treehouse world is like what Yestermorrow really preaches is you can't just design something and have someone just build it. You got to do it, design and build. And as things grow and evolve, you get to play with changes and route to your final product. And it frees you up a lot in the design world. Like in this case, we had to lean the wall out in a way that this fork branch would split. One fork goes out one wall and one goes out the other. That stuff, you can't draw that all verbatim. You gotta wing that pretty much on the fly and make that work.
Are there state-by-state regulations for residential tree houses?
It varies from state to state, even from county to county. Some places are tougher than others. The project we're doing currently down in Florida happens to be one of the toughest counties that we've encountered. California is tough. New York is tough. It varies. Some places are totally easy. In Florida, for example, we did a treehouse one year that required permitting and engineering the whole 9 yards. And the very next year, not even 10 miles away, but in a different county, no permits, no engineering, just a napkin sketch, and they were happy. So it really varies.
Cool.
This is the interior at Zeno Mountain Farm, the second of 2 tree houses we did for them. And I had the real pleasure to go back a couple years after the treehouse is done and create this whole bunk room thing where we've got people that have disabilities that come in a wheelchair can sleep on the lower level. And then you go up and up and up to all these different bunk beds. It's crazy. It's a whole bunch. This is from the top bunk bed, looking out this clear story of this band of light out towards Lake Champlain with stick infill, a lot of light, and a lot of crazy bunks. This is definitely came out of a Dr. Seuss book. That's a hand grip knob.
How many bugs?
There's 10. It can sleep 12 people. There are 6. Yeah, there's 10. There's 6 on
There's
the
10 bugs.
6 on approachable from the floor and 6 up in the sky. Tree limbs that go all over the place. That was a fun one. Yeah, here, that's a good view where you get to see a lot of the different bunks from one shot, and railings. So up that high, you don't roll out and fall out. Some crazy dream rouses you in the middle of the night. And that's the view from that back side. You can see Lake Champlain over to the right. Not in this view. It's an astounding camp. And that's it from downhill. There's an outdoor shower at that one at Zeno. The roof goes over. That's the outdoor shower here, and this privacy screen there, but then open to the, you can look out to the lake to the right, to the west. All right, she's not.
Give a plug.
I am giving a plug for Zeno. Peanut Gallery wants me to give a plug for Zeno Mountain Farm and Lake. And if you ever get a chance to go see their play in this summer, sadly enough, camp won't be happening. Things are different, but if you ever, for any of us that are watching locally, if you ever get the chance to go to Zeno Mountain Farm, not just to see the tree houses, but to meet the people and be at the place, it's just, it's so cool. Yeah, the movies are available online at zenomountainfarm.org. They do movies that are fundraisers. All right, there's enough advertising, Dana. Thank you. This is a camp in Michigan. So here from the woods, we are further framed. This is just about 20 minutes outside of Ann Arbor, the town I grew up in, and or actually where I lived as a kid. I claim I didn't grow up. So here we have an out of level top plate and a clear story light. My dad did a big clear story in the house we grew up in, so it's a big influence. This was the most fun to trim out. The being a camp for kids, I put out an email letter to all the parents of the camps if they had skis and snowshoes and snowboards kicking around in their attics or basements, and they donated tons of skis and sports gear. So we've got a water ski, a slalom water ski, cross country skis. The door has the snowshoe in the window, skis. It was license plates were the corner boards everywhere. Travis ran that job. It was great. He looked at me, he rolled his eyes more than once, but it really came out quite fun. The other door, tennis rackets, a water ski again, snowboards that I cut out to follow this arc. I stole John Farabee's, one of our crew guys. John, how are you? That's a T-square for sheetrock, which has no place in the treehouse world. A T-square for plywood or sheetrock. So I stole it and used that for that corner trim with a water ski, snowboard, water ski, cross country skis and license plates, wooden skis. And it's just so much fun. There's a close up of the tennis racket windows. And here,
Beaver, your very good friend John Anderson's wondering how wheelchair accessibility figures into the assisted living plan for your friends. I assume.
Oh yeah. Actually, here's a good example of, we could live here, John. It's true. This is a wheelchair on ramp and off ramp, and I think you've struck on a very good note. the older we get and the less able we are to run around, I think there'll be a senior citizens colony. We just have to find the site. So you put out a good question. Now start talking to some realtors and find where we can have an accessible old folks boogie home. Good question. I thought you were going to be a lot harder on me. I like that one. Here we have an out of level window and an out of level wall. And I donated my 4-foot wooden level to the cause because that window is so out of level. I wanted to exaggerate that. And then one of the other guys on the crew added a 2-foot level and we made it across. And cross country skis. It was so fun to do this. This camp was wonderful. It's called Northstar Reach, part of Paul Newman organization of the Hole in the Wall gang camps, Northstar Reach. So there's Clinto did this window. Here's when Travis really rolled his eyes. This window took several, not just hours, but maybe days. But man, look at it at the end. So cool. Corner boards of license plates, but look, he feathered these tips of skis down. I've
got a couple questions about plumbing and electrical and toilets in tree houses.
Ha! It can be done by all means. Plumbing, it can be done. Toilets, actually, a good answer to that is using composting toilets or incinerating toilets. Incinerating toilets actually have to have power. So depending on whether you have electricity or not, but there are plenty of tree houses we've done fully electrical systems and plumbing. And if it's in a winter place, you know, and you're not going to be around, you have to drain the pipes. The toilets at Zeno are wheelchair accessible. Those, they just drain the pipes in the end of the fall. It is doable. It's totally doable. We're doing a tree house for our grandkids that will have a composting toilet. We're not going to have power there. So composting toilet always works. Outdoor showers can be as simple as like a camp shower with a solar hot water bag, or it's possible to, if you want to really gear up, you could get a little propane instantaneous hot water heater. So yeah, plumbing, it's I don't usually recommend it. I kind of like keeping things more Spartan and more, you're really roughing it being in a treehouse. But for those that want the creature comforts of home, by all means, the answer is yes. You can do toilets. You can do cross-country skis on windows. There's no rules. Here's an indoor treehouse at Ocean City, Maryland, at a miniature golf course. Dig that. That's Jeffa's family business, miniature golf courses. So KV and I went down there and spent a month making 2 indoor tree houses in and amongst this huge building. We did a lot of bamboo action, and it was a lot of fun. It was a jungle theme. Yeah, that's it. So we're getting close to the end. Here's back to Treeforms. This is a bunk bed for this little guy here in the front corner, Wesley James. I hope you're watching. It was an extraordinary bunk bed that his grandmother and myself got to do for him with a wacky, this beech limb had been in my Treeform shop for 10 years. And I knew it would be something cool someday. I had no idea what or where or when, but here the time presented itself and we turned that into a ladder. We call it the treehouse room. It's like an indoor treehouse. Chainsaw notching at Discovery Museum. I'd spent hours. I beat the heck out of Bobby Stotter's chainsaw doing this cool little bench with a curved backrest. And a nice little piece of end grain. Wacky trees. So when you're out in the woods, you start looking at things differently. I hope this will inspire people to look at the woods differently and look for different trees. El Gigante in Oaxaca, Mexico. Look, it's wider than my arms. I'm 6'4", so my wingspan is 6'6". But that tree, that tree is probably like 18 or 20 feet across. And there's the newest guy on the Treehouse Guy crew, honing his chainsaw skills. There you go. That'll do it.
That was great. I want a tree house. So
I hope
what are you-
everyone wants a treehouse. You're never too old. You're never too young. Treehouse. The thing about treehouses is they make you feel young. You get in a treehouse and you just get all giddy with like a childhood feel.
Well, this was wonderful. Let's see. I think we might have a couple final questions coming in. Teresa says, "Thank you so much. Forever young, forever friends." Don't forget, you have to mow her lawn. I don't know how you're going to get to her, but you got to do it.
I'm trying to go back to the screen. Did I?
Here, let me see. We can go. There we go.
There we
I'll
are.
turn my video back on.
Thank you.
All right. Well, this was fantastic. Beaver, if people want to find out a little bit more about tree houses or like want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You could use the whisper-ma-phone. So you have a tin can and string. You can use that. And just holler my name. I'll answer.
That's my favorite.
If somehow your string isn't long enough in your tin can, you could email me at beefer@thetreehouseguys.com. That's BFER at thetreehouseguys.com, or just looking at thetreehouseguys.com. That's our website. That's probably more reliable than the whisper-ma-phone if you're out in Timbuktu or Akron, Ohio. Yeah, emailing is fine, or check out our website. Yeah. And Yestermorrow, go to yestermorrow.org and look up past instructors.
Your name comes up.
Past and future.
Absolutely. I would love that. I think that Yestermorrow needs another tree house. So
yeah, absolutely. The one thing I touched on it really lightly in all the years, we've been doing this 20 years now, and all the clients we've built in 25 states now, and all our clients, our past and future present clients, have all become friends. Anyone that wants a treehouse has to be cool enough to be a friend, and they are. Every client we walk out of every job just hugging and laughing and just tickled about knowing each other. So that's a real plus for me for having a job that allows me to meet people that are that cool and willing to, go to be that adventurous with their spare change to build a treehouse.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Beaver. It's been fun to see all the many things that you've created.
Thank you.
I posted
absolutely inviting me.
Yeah, we'll have to do it in person in a while when that's once again okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone out there in the crowd who I don't see, I hope you enjoyed that. And thanks for plugging in, and thanks for supporting Yestermorrow.
Yeah, I put a link in the chat box on Zoom as well as in the comments on Facebook Live. It's just a small survey, shouldn't take more than just a couple minutes, about the virtual speaker series. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could do that and give us some feedback as we adjust to new ways of doing things.
New way of doing things just flashed on the screen. John and Laura just said, "Great, thank you." Hey,
awesome.
Hey, Laura. Thanks for watching. All right, now they're flashing now. Oh my God, Denise. Okay, so now I do know people were watching.
Oh yeah, you've got lots of great people
Denise,
watching.
hi. That's museum. See, there's another client that's now a friend that just said hi and I haven't seen in a while.
That's perfect.
Hey, Laura. How fun. Well,
awesome.
In these days that we can't be within 6 feet of each other, at least through your high-tech means of doing this Zoom slideshow, you keep Yestermorrow floating, you keep people entertained. So this is one way that it does work, I guess.
Yeah, it's something. I think it's been working pretty well. And yeah, just a reminder, as Beaver mentioned, turning virtual for Yestermorrow during this time. We've been doing a lot of work putting together some online classes they've been really filling up, which is wonderful. So feel free, if you're at home looking to learn something new, check out our website, yestermorrow.org, and see what online classes we have scheduled. We're also hoping to be able to have some in person, but that's all to be determined. So once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Hopefully see you next week. Same time, same place, same link if you showed up on Zoom. It would be really great to see you then as well. And Beaver, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Hope
all.
to see you around sometime too.
All right.
Even if it's 6 feet away.
All right. Cheers.
Bye. Have a good night.